Says we're
We're
live.
live. Greetings, everybody. Sorry we're a little bit late. I was giving bad technical advice, apparently. And we've got it going now, though. We've got it going now. Sitting here with Fig and JC. Sticks is going to come back and do some productions in the background in the interim. But this is going to be show 99 with JC. He's got some serious Marine Corps aviation experience in multiple different directions. Did some F4 Phantom maintenance. What was your C-130? We'll find out about that when we get there.
That's right.
And then trained a crap ton of naval aviators to become, turned them from college kids into naval officers, and wrote a book about it. So, all right, Sticks, we're going to say hi to you briefly. Do you have your production notes that you need?
Yeah. I'm actually, I'm now back and I have that.
Okay, super. So we'll stick you back in the production room and we're going to kick off the show. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you doing this. All right. I need to do two things. One is done.
Add them to the stream.
Add who to the stream?
I see a note on my side that says they need to connect their mic/cam before you can add them to the stream.
Yeah. It shouldn't be an issue now. Everybody's here that needs to be here.
Okay.
All right. Here we go.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit on the tanker through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. There I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the...
Well, there I was, C-130, flying out of Marine Corps Air Station El Toro, VMGR 352. And we were taking a flight to Hawaii. And about an hour into flight, we lose one of our four engines.
Ooh.
I was a student flight engineer, sergeant, and I'm fresh to the industry for the C-130 because I was an F4 Phantom mechanic. So I didn't know a whole lot about the aircraft at this point. We get to the midpoint of the distance between California and Hawaii, and we lose our second engine. So we have an outboard engine on one side and an inboard engine on the other side that are gone. And I've already recalled from reading Ditching at Sea that it's possible to allegedly fly the aircraft with one inboard engine and get rid of all your cargo. The cargo happened to be a platoon of infantry in the United States Marine Corps. And I get a call on the headset to bring the parachutes up to the flight deck. So I start handing off those parachutes to the front flight deck, and then I'm told to put mine on, and I do. And it was at that point that I was trying to not make eye contact with a bunch of nervous Marines and one pissed off master sergeant when his hand comes up and grabs the front of my blouse, and he grips it and pulls me down and begins to reincarnate into his own form of a drill instructor.
And that is how all great aviation tales begin. We'll get to the rest of that shortly, but this is Repeat here coming to you from England this morning, whenever you happen to be listening. And we are thrilled to have a wonderful guest with us. But first, where's my co-host, Fig?
Hey, I am in Kearney, Missouri. Got home last night and avoided the snowmageddon in Denver. And I am really excited to welcome our guest, JC. And I know this is going to be a core workout. Welcome, JC.
Hoorah!
It is indeed. So, but you didn't start your career as a sergeant. You started, how'd you get interested in the Marine Corps and aviation and all that? And we'll get into your background, but spent many years as a drill instructor and taught a bunch of college kids to become naval officers. So, amongst other duties. So, how'd you get interested?
Becoming a Marine was necessity. I was 19 and a half years old. Father was a Marine from 56 to 58, but he once a Marine, always a Marine, carried that persona with him.
Right.
And I realized that the welcome mat was being rolled up. And I thought, you know what? I got to find something to do, because right now, although I'm employed with a bunch of crappy jobs, that's no way to live the future of your life. Shoving out pits at a car wash and a paper route at 19 and a half, kind of hard to find advertised as marriage material. And so I went and joined the Marine Corps, and had to get a morality waiver because of all my misconduct as a civilian. And so they let me in. And with that, I made it to boot camp. But I was told I was on a 3-year contract. And because I had a morality waiver, that was the minimum contract you could sign back then, was 3 years. And you could not pick your own job with all the problems that I had and my low GPA that I brought, because I spent high school and junior high fighting instead of studying.
Nice.
And I have to say that it was a week and a half before graduation of boot camp, and Staff Sergeant Jennings called me and another recruit on the deck and on the quarterdeck. Crouch, Johnson, get up here. So I'm going to flying up there, get the proper report. And Staff Sergeant Jennings starts putting his visual focus on the recruit beside me. So at that moment, after 11 and a half weeks of boot camp, being finally disciplined, I started daydreaming. And I started thinking about other things that don't pertain to recruit training or the drill instructor in front of me. And then all of a sudden I heard, "Aye, aye, sir," from the recruit beside me. I didn't say, "Aye, aye, sir." I did not acknowledge anything. He goes, "What about you, you little scrouchy fuck?" "Sir, Mr. Crew was not listening to the drill instructor, sir." It was an honest response, but a stupid response. Because at that point, I felt the clutch of his hand, and he began to PT me to death on the quarterdeck. So eventually, I got the instructions that I was supposed to go with this other recruit to headquarters and speak to this Marine major who was going to talk to us about the opportunity to extend my contract in the Marine Corps. And I'm thinking, do I even want to do a 4th year? I haven't even enjoyed the first 11 and a half weeks.
Oh, my gosh.
To get there, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a female in Marine uniform, and she had a gravelly voice. And she told me and the other recruit that because we had such high ASVAB scores, that we could pick our own job in aviation if we'd extend our contract to 4 years from 3. So I instantly jumped on that opportunity. So just because I got C's and D's in high school and junior high doesn't mean I was stupid. I just didn't apply myself.
Right.
As parents often say.
All right, JC, what year was that? What year was
1980. So my Christmas present to my parents was I signed up to become a Marine November 9, 1979. Had I known about the Marine Corps birthday, I would have begged to do it the following day. But Iran had taken our hostages at the embassy,
right?
November 4th. And I thought, wow, there's an opportunity to do something in this world. And I need to find a home because the welcome mat's being rolled up. So I shipped out on December 26th. What a great present. Dad couldn't wait to shave my head. So I showed up to boot camp with the flat top. And so the drill instructors and receiving automatically thought I was a plant working for the depot inspectors to see if they're abusing recruits. And because everybody else had long hippie hair in 1979.
You bet.
Yeah. So I was a Hollywood Marine. I was supposed to be a parasite, but I was a Hollywood Marine because you could pick what boot camp you went to if you had a family member that was in the Marines. So Dad went to San Diego, being from Iowa. And since I was in Illinois, I was supposed to go to Parris Island, but I chose to have the same experience Dad had for location, and I went there.
Family tradition. Excellent. So
outstanding.
Yeah. All right. So
I'm sorry, I just cannot imagine what that drill instructor was thinking when the recruit said I wasn't listening. Oh, dear God. Hey, he probably almost fell over. Like, what? Well, that's not possible.
Back up a few weeks. So naivety is a gift that I was given. And apparently it also creates interesting exchanges. So I'm walking out of the head. It's probably fifth week in the recruit training. And I hear all this laughter in the senior drill instructor office as I head past it toward my rack during that 1 hour of so-called free time in the evening. And so the whole drill instructor team was in there, all 5 of them. And I couldn't help it. I moved my eyes and my head slightly to see what was so funny going on there. Staff Sergeant Jennings noticed. He runs out there, tells me to freaking stop. Come here. And he grabs me, and then he changes hands, and he's got the nape of my neck and my blouse. He says, "You want to see what's in the senior drill instructor's office? You seem to be really fucking interested." And he brings me in there, and he pushes me over the senior drill instructor's desk, and he's sitting there, Staff Sergeant Mogeson, and all the other drill instructors are kind of like shocked, like, okay, let's watch him do a workout with Crouch. And so brings me over, stuff goes flying, takes me, and then but he's working me hand to hand and slams me up against the metal wall locker, and then takes me over to where there's 2 drill instructors sitting on the bottom bunk, and makes sure I have an opportunity to see their faces, pulls me out, takes me to the senior drill instructor head. And I thought, this is about to get ugly. Yeah. And I may not win every fight in life, but I'll be damned if I'm going to become
plunger.
Put my head in the toilet. It starts to push my head in the freaking toilet, and I'm pushing back. And finally, he gives up and pulls me back out. He said, "Have you seen enough? Is there anything else you missed that you want to see? Or do you see anything that you want to see again?" "No, sir." And he launches me out of the office like they did in the Westerns through the saloons. And I go sprawling on the quarter deck. And he steps out there to give warning to the rest of the platoon. "Anybody else want a private tour of the senior drill instructor's office? We have another 10 minutes to go." And so no one took him up on the offer. And but yes, I very naive. And I remember these things when I became a drill instructor to make sure that I did my best to ensure the standards were held.
Pass it along. Pay it forward.
Pay it forward.
Oh my gosh. All right. Okay.
You want to get into aviation first? Or you want
Well,
to
so is that where? So you did well on ASVABs. So obviously, were you? So aviation, the air wing was an option.
It was an option when they wanted more people on a 4-year contract. What do we have that meets these metrics? All right, he had a morality waiver, 3-year, no guaranteed contract, but we'll give them in this carrot, and he'll go for it. And I did, because I was back then. They told you what your job skill was going to be in the Marine Corps before you graduate boot camp.
Sure.
Fast forward, you didn't learn until you completed MCT after boot camp. So I was told that I was going to be a field radio operator. I thought, great. I have 0 leg strength. I suffered for the last couple of weeks down there at Camp Pendleton, going up and down them damn hills. I was a March drop every single March. And as Marines, you know how drill instructors feel. Any Marine feels about a March.
They love those guys.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy.
And so I would get to the top of the hill. I see them recovering with water. And it was for me over here so I could be PT'd to death again. And all I could think about is my uncle was a Vietnam Army soldier who was a field radio operator. He says, "It's a horrible job. You have an extra 38 pounds on your back carrying a radio, spare batteries. And one of the 2 of you is going to be the first one shot. You are the lieutenant. And they want to kill communication, and they want to put the bullet through, not so much me, but through the radio. And then the lieutenant. So they lose leadership, they lose communication." And all I could think about was not the fear of death, but simply the fear of having to march and carry all this damn weight up and down hills and laying on the ground and practicing being homeless. And so when they told me I could be aviation, I thought, it's got to be better. And it was freaking phenomenal.
Outstanding. So what was your first aviation job?
So I looked at all these job titles when I was in her office at Major. And I says, "Ma'am, I don't understand what any of these job titles mean. Which one gets the dirtiest and uses wrenches?" And she said, "Oh, that'd be aviation machinist, mate. But you have scores that allow you to be in electronics, to be aviation electronics or navigation. And that's a much better job." I says, "But I'd rather turn wrenches and get dirty." and I want to work on the engines and the fuel systems. And so that's why I ended up working on with the F4 Phantom. And so I worked the F4 Phantom at the squadron level as a, at that time they call it not flight line, but power plants.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I had a great time in that after they got done hazing me. So one of my first experiences of being hazed is the fact that we're familiar with the things, prop wash and flight line and
Sure.
all that garbage. But here I am. I'm now a Lance Corporal. I've been doing this job for about 9 months, and I'm told on the early morning, "Hey, Crouch, go out there and set up whatever aircraft for a maintenance turn." So I go out there and I get the I dive the ducts, and I take my flashlight, my inspection mirror with me, and I start spinning the fan blades of the fan module, and I'm pissed. My mirror shows me on the back side of the inlet guide vanes, Scotch tape was used to attach nuts, bolts, washers, all these kind of metal fasteners to FOD the engine. And it was at least 2 stages deep in the fan module, which is 3 stages, as I recall. I'm hot under the collar. I go jump the other one, the other intake, and check that engine. Same thing. I come back in the office. I start cussing out the entire team of NCOs, staff NCO. I say, "This is a bunch of bullshit, putting a freaking airplane at risk and not only causing $1 million worth of damage in 2 separate engines, but possibly putting a pilot's life at risk should a pilot ever get in that freaking airplane." What are you talking about, Crouch? I says, "I'm talking about the fact that y'all testing my attention to detail, taping fasteners on the backside of the inlet guide vanes in the freaking engine." He goes, "You better not be freaking lying." I says, "I ain't lying. In fact, I would like to see y'all get out there and freaking remove it all because someone in this damn department did that." Actually, I would have said shop in that department. But so they look at each other, the NCOs, like, "Any of you do this?" And they start asking questions. They all say no. So they said, "Go. Everybody, we're going out there. You better hope to God you're not lying to us." So they get out there, they dive the ducts, they count, he's telling the truth. Boom. Handheld radio to maintenance control. Maintenance control, do not allow any aircraft engine to be started. Cancel the flight schedule. We found sabotage engines.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Of 12 aircraft, about 9 or 10 of them were sabotaged. And so then they had the maintenance control meeting, and they had canceled this flight schedule for the rest of the day. They had all the CDIs, which is collateral duty inspector that inspects the maintenance of other persons in a shop, go out there and inspect their systems. They found that is a coordinated effort of sabotage. It took many people to do this. They had gone out there and cut components so that if you were to eject from the aircraft, you would not have a safe ejection. They had sabotaged the locking mechanisms, like castle nuts with keys going through them. The cotter keys are missing, things like that, and wrenched loose.
What the hell?
Yes. So this is late 1980, early 1981. Now, to think about the mood of what was going on in the military, this is before we had the random urinalysis. We had several aircraft crash on aircraft carriers in 80 and 81. And they found a high preponderance of utilization of alcohol and other drugs in the system of maintainers and the ship's crew. Right. And they finally decided that we got to get a handle on this. So they went to this frequent, constant, unannounced urinalysis to get rid of the druggies. Well, my squadron had just come back when I joined them, just got back from not a Westpac, but they were over in the Indian Ocean because of the Iranian hostage situation at the U.S. Embassy. So they floated out in the Indian Ocean for 9 months and basically never got shore time. They spent all their time on the damn ship.
Yeah.
So they came back. And of course, there's tremendous amount of alcohol and drugs in the Marine Corps, which I thought was amazing because I joined to get away from that culture. And so I gave up marijuana when I joined the Marine Corps and gave up the alcohol. And my first day in the shop, I came in there looking sharp, spit shine boots, satines, pressed out, starched. And I walked in the back changing room of the shop. And just to give you an idea of the culture, and there's two Marines in civilian attire, and they got a Frisbee and a joint roller, and they're cleaning a bag of marijuana. I go,
Oh my God.
marijuana? Yeah, you got a problem with it? I didn't think I'd see it in the Marine Corps. I go back into the shop because I was told I was going to be working on night shift, and because I need to learn the jet, which I thought was a stupid statement. But the point is that they want you to learn where all the pain points are when you're crawling under the aircraft and you gouge your head and your shoulders and things like that. That's how you learn the airplane. Learn where all the pain points are for contact. And so they said, you're going to be on night shift, so just stick around. And so I started opening drawers. What are you doing? I says, I'm the lowest rank here. You're probably going to have me getting things, so I need to know where the hell they are. It's logical. I open up the refrigerator. There's like 7, 8 cases of beer in there. I go, when do y'all drink this? Whenever we want. And it was a very abrasive environment. And we had FOD-free coveralls, but one of them had cut the inside, and he kept a flask of hard liquor in there. And that Marine, he said, here, you want a drink? When we went out to learn the aircraft, I says, what is it? He says, vodka. I says, no, I don't drink. So it was a very bad time in the military, especially the Marine Corps at that time. And getting back to the story about sabotage. So this had been a push-pull that had been going on for quite a while because the story is actually called The AMO is Out of Control. The AMO at one point felt that a few months earlier, morale is low. So now we're going to work 6 days a week. Well, that didn't help things. Morale has not improved. So now we're going to work 7 days a week. That didn't improve. Morale is low. So now we're going to work 10-hour days, then 12-hour days. And this has been going on for several
So the
weeks.
beatings will continue until morale improves.
Right.
How many times have we heard that? And so then we end up with this event. And so what they did was to solve the problem, in their wisdom, they were going to start integrity watch. That was the term they gave it. So every department of the 9 work centers had to create a duty roster, and those Marines would not work on the jet. During these hours, that Marine would be in the full camouflage uniform with web gear, H harness. We didn't have Kevlar back then, but the combat helmet. They'd go draw their rifle, no ammunition, but draw the rifle just for pain, and then sit there on the bench inside maintenance control, and they would wait. So every department had 2 or 3 people dressed as combat Marines without ammo. So if somebody from hydraulic shop was going to come in, they'd have to check in that, all right, I'm here to go work on aircraft 3 to replace the AMAD. And so with that, they'll pick somebody from another department, but not the one that the technician works in. So they'll pick a seat mech. What does he know about the job that's being done by the hydraulics guy?
Right.
They felt that somebody from the same shop would provide cover. So the seat guy doesn't know if he's doing something right or not, but he has to sit there with his rifle out in the sun, being miserable, going through this pain point until they finally sabotage all the airplanes. So shortly thereafter, there's a change of leadership and things improved. And I am sad in the sense that it seemed like 6 to 9 months later, there was a reason that the F-4 in our squadron had to eject. And the real was the executive officer, as I recall. And he is a wonderful guy, but unfortunately, his drogue chute burned up in the fireball, and he fell to his death. And I've always wanted to know what was the root cause of why they had to eject. Was this maintenance related, or was this some other reason for it? Pilot error, or the dangers of naval aviation? I really don't know, but it just always bothered me because that squadron had all that sabotage, and them those Marines who should not have been in the Marine Corps still in uniform.
And they never caught him.
No, they never found out who did any of the sabotage. But yeah, it was, and we were working 3 shifts at that time, 3 8-hour shifts. But there's a lot of collaboration that had to have occurred for that to happen.
Yeah. Before we go any further, I think we covered this at one point, repeat, AMO.
Yeah.
Acronym AMO. I mean, we know what it means. Can you define that for us, JC?
Aircraft maintenance officer. Typically, it's going to be a very senior captain or a major, and their job is to be accountable and responsible for aircraft being full mission capable as often as humanly possible. And so therefore they have to be the maestro and orchestrate what's happening as far as priorities and the actual delivery of that information is the maintenance control chief and his maintenance controllers to make sure that mission is accomplished.
That is an outstanding definition.
Yeah.
So you were in VMFA
Death Rattlers.
323.
Death
Yeah, the
Rattlers.
Death
Okay.
Rattlers.
And that was in the Death Rattlers are in
El Toro.
El Toro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so after that tour, what did your Marine Corps career look like?
So what happened there was, at that time, I did not have enough. Let me rephrase it. The squadron was getting rid of the F-4 Phantoms in 1983 in the summer. So therefore, they said, when the people that we send to Lemoore to learn about the FA-18 have to have X amount of time remaining on contract as technicians, maintenance mechs. And I did not have enough time on my existing contract to satisfy that need, because when we came back from Lemoore, within a year, we were going on the USS America for a Westpac. And at that point, I wasn't sure I wanted to stay in the Marine Corps. And so I said, nope, I'll take a pass. And so I stayed behind. And back then, you could actually refuse orders, even as a corporal.
Wow.
And I refused orders 2 times to Hawaii. And so
because who wants to go to Hawaii?
What, are you crazy?
I was in love with someone at the time. We had not married yet.
There you go.
So therefore,
okay.
everyone in the squadron started getting their orders, and they started leaving. So we went from about 120 people who stayed behind. It's now me and maybe 8, 9 people. And
boy.
I spent 5 months, I haven't had a job. And we were working 3 hours a day, 4 days a week, because we got the place as clean as humanly possible. There's nothing for us to do. So with that, I was called to the Sergeant Major's office. Get up there and report in. He says, Corporal Crouch, you got about a heartbeat to give me an answer. I'm going to give you 2 choices. You're going on 6 months of nuclear guard duty, or you're going to interview to become the commanding general's driver. Well, I had no problem coming up with an answer. I said,
Right.
I'd like to interview to be the general's driver. I had a friend who did nuclear guard duty. It was no fun. And it was in a fenced-in compound on base, and you slept in a tent for 2 days on the inside. And then on the outside, they had people marching inside and outside, and it was just a nightmare job. So fast forward, I go to interview, and I start by parking my motorcycle on the general spot. It wasn't clearly marked, in my opinion. So I parked in the commanding general spot, and I was interviewing to be the assistant commanding general's driver. So as I'm marching off away from my motorcycle, the window opens from headquarters, and this colonel starts yelling at me. He says, "Stop! You just got off that motorcycle?" "Yes, sir, I did." He says, "Get back there and get that motorcycle out of the general's parking spot." So I went and reparked the motorcycle and went in for the interview. I did well, I thought, but I forgot something that I needed to come back and ask this question for afterwards. So I returned to the crime scene a few minutes later inside the aide-de-camps area. And I waited to talk to Lieutenant Ostape, and he's standing there with a clipboard talking with 2 other Marines inside the headquarters element. He says, "What do you need?" And I asked whatever the question was, but I noticed his clipboard. And it was the other people I competed with. Crossed out, zips, ugly. Next one, crossed out, DUI. And then my name was not marked up yet. So I guess I was photogenic and didn't have the DUI at that point to get the job. So I ended up getting the job. And so the rule was, if you do a great job for the general, when your time is up, you can pick your next duty station and any other benefit that you want. So since they were phasing out the F-4 Phantom, I wanted to get my wings and become a navigator on the C-130. So I asked him for that. He said, "Well, all right, let me see what I can do." And I'm thinking, see what I can do? He's commanding general, he should be able to do anything he wants.
Yeah, come on, man.
Came back a few days later. He says, "Well," at that time I'd been promoted to sergeant. He says, "Sergeant Crouch, can't get you navigator. It's overstaffed, too many people. However, I can get you flight engineer. I thought, oh no. I talked to a couple of flight engineers. One was my neighbor. He's never home. Didn't seem to enjoy his job that much. But I went ahead and took it anyways, because they had a program that says you can DOR at any point without any negative repercussion before you get your wings. But once you get your wings, there's fallout. And so what a prima donna bunch of people. And a very close friend of mine, Master Gunner Sergeant, who was a navigator, told me just last fall when him and I were talking about it, the career paths that we had. He says, I never understood why the flight engineers always haze the hell out of the students who wanted to become a navigator. I mean, become a flight engineer.
Yeah.
Because navigators were a whole different culture. And it was about mentoring and developing. But the flight engineers, it was, can you survive the dogfight? And so I had requested that duty. I got it. I was happy to have my cash sales fresh flight suit, which I was told I better wash it at least 15 times before I ever come back with it, because it smelled like cash sales. And, that hazing starts right there. And I'd be told, you'll know everything about the Hide 2 system by the time we land. And, the flights are 6-7 hours long. And I better be studying those manuals in flight while doing the other tasks. And that's when I had a horrible toothache. And so I had asked one day if I could go to the dentist. They gave me so much crap. I thought, man, my tooth hurts like hell. And so I went to the dentist, taking the harassment from them. I came back. And then fast forward a couple of weeks, my girlfriend says, hey, she'd been wanting to get married, but I would be husband number 4 at that point.
Ooh.
And so, yeah. So, and the other 2 of the 3 were Marines. So I thought to myself, I'm not in a rush to do this. And we've been together a couple of years, but I'm not ready yet. And I'm much younger than she is. And so with that, she said to me one day, she said, I was bitching about the car insurance. And so I said, what would it cost if we got married? Right? Boom, she had an answer for me. So this is before Geico had, say 15%. And she said, why? I just called, the insurance company, and they said they'll cut whatever off. I says, it was on a Wednesday. I says, all right, we'll get married just to the piece this Saturday when I get back from flight, because I was on the flight schedule for Saturday, every day and Saturday. So I get on the aircraft and get it all prepped. We're taxiing down to the end of the runway, down the marshalling area. And so I come on the intercom. I said to the captain, I said, Captain, I'm curious, any idea what time of day you think we're landing? Once again, here we go with that love. What do you have that's so freaking important that you need to know when we're getting back? I says, well, I was going to get married when we get back. Oh, what? You better be lying to me. I'm not. We'll get married by the justice of the peace when we get back. Who'd you tell? I said, I didn't tell anybody. Why not? I says, considering all the crap everybody gave me about trying to go to the dentist for extreme pain, why should I tell them about something that's elective like getting married? Just because you're a sergeant doesn't mean you're smart. And so they stopped the aircraft, shut down the inboard engine on the left side. I got out, kicked me off the aircraft. So I walked on down the marshalling back to my squadron, called her up, and I said, hey, come get me. They kicked me off the airplane. So we went and got married. It worked for 31 years, but
only 31.
Only 31. I'm always willing to give it one more chance. But 31 out of 34 years. So with that, let's talk about C-130s, the story that actually got us talking about.
Yeah.
So now I've been doing this job for about 4.5 months. I'm getting pretty good at it. I'm getting pretty close to getting my wings, and have to make a serious consideration. Do I go for that? We take off. About an hour into flight, we lose one outboard or one inboard engine. Don't remember, but there's 4 engines. And I got props for those who don't know. And I've got a platoon of Marine infantry on there. We're taking them from California to Hawaii. And everybody gets kind of nervous when they see a prop standing stationary on an aircraft over the ocean.
Yeah.
Right?
It could be a little unnerving. Yeah, it's not normal.
There's windows. They notice. Less vibration. They notice. And so we get to the midpoint.
We're just saving gas. We shut a couple down.
So we get to the midpoint, and another engine goes down. So now it's one inboard and one outboard, one on each wing. I remember studying the book for ditching at sea. And I also remember that allegedly you can fly it with one inboard engine if you get rid of your cargo. The only cargo I had was humans, Marines, infantry. So on the intercom from my headset, I hear the captain say, "Sgt Crouch, bring us our parachutes up to the flight deck." All right. I start carrying these parachutes over there. All these eyes from that platoon of Marines are on me. I don't have to look to know that they're beaming through me. And so I take each one up there, consciously not making any eye contact with them. And then I hear them say, "Make sure you put yours on." I don't want to, but I do, because a good Marine follows orders. So I put the parachute on, get it all going. Now I got to walk between the knees from the flight deck down that port side of the aircraft to the hydraulic reservoir at the back end and do an inspection on it. And all of a sudden, this big hand reaches up and grabs the front of my flight suit, jerks and pulls me down so I could hear him. "Where in the fuck are our parachutes?" And then I had to yell at him over the loud noise of the two remaining turboprops. "We don't bring parachutes for passengers, Master Sergeant." And the Marines beside him, their eyeballs were big. And the Master Sergeant's eyeballs were laser focused on wanting to throw me out the aircraft. And he let go of me. And I knew at that moment, I could see people bailing out if they chose to from the cockpit, and we could see that. But I knew that if I were to open the rear gate, the rear tail ramp, or to the side doors, I would go out, but without a parachute.
Yeah.
And the good news is we made it to land and without losing another engine. But imagine they didn't want to ever fly on a C-130 again.
That's rough right there.
Right? That's a show title. We don't carry parachutes for passengers.
I kind of like, where the fuck are our parachutes?
Yeah, there's that too. No shit. Oh my
shit
God.
Is right.
So, let me tell you about helicopters. I was the general's driver I'd gotten back to, that's right, I was a young Marine. I was a Lance Corporal. So I'd only been in the Marine Corps about 9 to 12 months. And I'm on my first helicopter ride. I'm going from Marine Corps Air Station El Toro out to 29 Palms. And we're going to do, it's my very first CAX exercise, Combined Arms Exercise, which is when you've got aircraft and infantry and artillery, learn how to coordinate their resources to wage live fire on a fictitious enemy that's out there in the hills of the Mojave Desert.
There it is. We're looking at a picture of it right now.
Yeah, that's a 1985. I pulled that off Google Earth, 1985. So that's the expeditionary airfield that had aluminum matting that interlocked.
Yep.
And to the right of it, right quadrant of the screen is the camp, where I'll be telling a story shortly about 29 Palms is one big kitty litter box. And but
lots of sand.
So getting there. We're about 20 minutes into flight from El Toro. Now we're over Riverside, California on our route. And this gunner sergeant gets up, walks to the door gunner. He's a sergeant. And I can hear him yelling, "I need to use a toilet." Sergeant looks at him and says, "We don't have toilets on the aircraft, Gunny." "I got to take a shit." "We don't have toilets, Gunny. Sit down." He pauses, he takes a few steps, returns. "Let me hang out the window." Out that door gunner.
Yeah.
Window.
Hey, before you go any further, what kind of helicopter was this?
CH-46.
CH-46. Okay.
Okay. And for those not initiated, that's the big one that looks like a upside down egg beater, double counter rotating blades in the sky.
Twin whirling, dervishes. Yes.
It can hold a lot of Marines, but when they sit in those jump seats, there's only about 3.5, 4 feet between their kneecaps. from side to side.
Side to side, yep.
Which factors in here in just a moment. So
Oh, boy.
with that, Gunny's dejected. He goes back and sits down. Apparently, he's got a biological war happening in his colon, and he's losing. And he gets back up. He says, "Will you open the hellhole?" He wants to open the hellhole, which is a flat plate at the bottom of the aircraft for fast roping, and he wants to drop a load on Riverside. Imagine out there, you're mowing your lawn, having a barbecue, washing your car, you get brown sludge. That wouldn't go over well for the Marine Corps, I can tell you. So the sergeant once again chews him out and says, "Use your damn helmet." So he walks over to me, probably because I'm the lowest ranking Marine present, hands me his freaking helmet.
No.
I know what he's about to do. And he starts disrobing, handing off his rifle, and drops his drawers. I don't want to be a foot from someone taking a dump.
No.
And seeing his hairy cheeks and all that stuff. It's PTSD, but I've gotten through it. And he wants me to hold the bucket for him. I says, "I ain't holding your damn helmet." I gave it back to him. And so he held his bucket. Then he handed it back to me so he can get dressed. Well, then, wait, not yet. He asked the sergeant if he had shit paper. So he didn't get no shit paper. And then he went ahead and pulled his drawers up. I handed him back his freaking helmet. So he wanted to then dump it. He says, "Sit down and hold your freaking helmet in your damn lap." So the sergeant's telling the gunny how life's going to be. And he's sitting there holding this steaming turd. And we still have like 40 minutes before we get to a.
Oh, no.
So we get off on the expeditionary airfield. We all have our helmets and our rifles. He's got his helmet in his hand. Now, people outside the helicopter waiting for their arrival don't know the backstory. "Get your damn helmet on, Marine." He ignores them. He's not going to explain nothing. He's just going to take the butt chewing. But so the kitty litter. So when you go back to that picture on 29 Palms, there are 4 fixed head facilities. A head is a bathroom, a shower facility.
4.
And you can see them up here where you look where the little red dot is. Well, to the right of it at 1 o'clock is a white square, and to the left of it at 10 o'clock is a white square, and then you go up about 3 inches on the screen, and you have 2 more squares, and everything between that is metal A-frames. And at the time, we had a whole bunch of people out there, so we had a lot of GP tents, general purpose canvas tents that could hold about 8 Marines, as I recall. And it was summertime, so the sides were rolled up, and everybody could see what's going on, catch a breeze. I'm stuck in the middle between all 4 points that I need to be at for finding a head. And so I thought, shit, I'm in a damn kitty box litter right now. It's the biggest damn kitty box litter in the world. I'll just take a dump right here in camp. I don't care if women see me. And I drop my drawers because I've had a thing in life. I will not soil myself. And so I start taking a dump. Everybody who outranks me, which is just about everybody in camp, sees me and starts screaming, yelling, or laughing. And those with any of authority are chewing me out. And those who are near my rank level, they are just laughing their butt off. And of course, I can talk, 25 yards away to this tent. "You guys got any toilet paper?" "Fuck you, Crouch." And so I have a major and a gunny, and they're both yelling at me from 2 different points, wanting me to stop what I'm doing and come see them. That ain't happening.
I'm a little busy.
That's the hellhole. That's the hellhole.
There's the hellhole.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I took my cover off and I left it next to it so I could find it. And so I went to go get my butt chewed, and they both took turns giving me a butt chewing at 2 different locations. I went back and got some stuff to pick it up and get rid of it, just clean out the kitty box. And but I was told that I wouldn't have to worry about needing to find a head facility for any length of time, because for the next week I was on head cleaning detail. So it's all I did from Reveille to Taps was clean all 8 fixed not porta-johns, but head facilities.
Oh, geez.
Instead of working in airplanes.
Well, so there was some motivation to get to get back to the flight line.
Yeah.
Right out loud. Oh, that's a good story.
Have you ever heard the expression "tits up"?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's 2 points of reference, and the point of
Okay.
reference that maintenance control has is not the one that I have. So when I think of tits up, I think of a goldfish, and it's floating in the fishbowl.
Yeah.
Tits up. It's dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Apparently, this young staff sergeant, he used the point of reference for young, perky women. So they're young and they're healthy and they're ready to go.
Okay.
So with that, I'm in the maintenance control meeting. We've been waiting to get this engine pulled and replaced, and it really needs to happen. I was told that aircraft 7 is tits up. I thought, all right. And
It's ready to go.
yeah, so I get my toolbox. I'm a one-man show on mid crew, and so a Lance Corporal. You get your own crew, your own team. It's you, and you're on mid crew. So you're there from 11 p.m. at night until 7:30 in the morning. And so I was able to pull engines by myself without help. And so I got the engine all disconnected. It's about 10 minutes to 7. Here comes the pilot with his flight gear and his helmet bag. And as he gets closer, he stops. He looks at the nose again. He goes, "What the fuck did you just remove my engine for? I just signed for this jet." And I said, "It's tits up. The engine's overdue. It's got to be pulled. They've been asking us to get this engine pulled for the longest time." Well, not only did I misunderstand the point of reference, at least for this squadron, this maintenance control chief, I also had a problem with understanding port side and starboard side, and I pulled the wrong engine on the wrong jet. So I had the wrong jet. I didn't have permission to pull it. I had the wrong jet because they were using butyl numbers and I was using nose numbers, and I pulled the wrong engine on the wrong side. And so I really, really screwed up that day. But I got to keep my rate.
Pulled the wrong engine on the wrong side. There are so many positive or perspective show titles. I can't even.
I know. They're just throwing them at us as fast as you can.
But I want you to
That's
know
awesome.
I took care of you guys. I took care of you guys. I'll tell you how.
So just real quickly, so the bureau number is the long 6-digit number on the side of the back of the jet, the tail number. It's basically the registration number, and then the nose number is just a 2-digit, sometimes a 3-digit, but usually a 2-digit number.
Navy does 3-digit, Marine Corps does 2-digit, but as I was walking to the flight line looking at butyls, I found the last 2 numbers were matching up to the nose.
Oh shit!
That's it.
That's got to be the one.
That's it.
But fast forward a few years, I've left the C-130s, took a full re-enlistment bonus to go F-4 Phantoms. I went to the East Coast where they still have them. And instead, we're going to the squadron. They put me at intermediate level of maintenance, known as AIMD. And so what I did was rebuild the engines, the complete engine repair shop. So I was having a blast, loving that job. And I took pride because I was an engine mechanic for 2 years before I joined the Marine Corps. And I thought that a pilot should have the absolute best engine possible every time it goes out, whether it's combat or whether it's training. So my CDI number, which is Collateral Duty Inspector for inspecting other people's work, was CDI number 13. And so you can't inspect your own work, but your number's still put on there. And one day, a team of 3 officers showed up from East Coast NAVAIR LANT, Naval Aviation Air Atlantic. And so they oversee the maintenance evolutions that happen throughout the East Coast Navy and Marine Corps. And they're bean counters, and they look at how many parts were being used to rebuild the engines. Apparently, I gold plate the engine. I didn't know gold plating even existed. Because they show up one day and they talk to the lieutenant. Lieutenant calls me to the office. I report in. And these 3 officers say, "Are you CDI number 13? I said, "Yes, I am. I'm Sgt Crouch." "Well, we're here to watch you for a week rebuild engines." Because I said, "Why?" Is there a problem? He says, "Well, yeah, there's a problem. You're gold plating the engines." I says, "What's
That's
gold
good. That sounds like a good thing to me.
Yeah.
Gold plating is when you put parts on before it's time to put the parts on. That you put in new parts on instead of using the parts that still have serviceable wear.
Oh, for fuck's
So we're
sake.
going to come out here and watch you." Nothing like being a sergeant with 3 commissioned officers watching you. a commander, a lieutenant commander, and I think one was a lieutenant. And
Because they know how to change engines too.
Oh, yeah, they're real smart that way.
So I'm pulling out the micrometers. I'm doing my measurements, my vernier caliper, and I'm taking these critical measurements. So I'm taking apart the high pressure compressor section of the engine, which is a series of blades that get narrower and smaller as the air compresses going back.
Yeah.
And as I'm checking the wear on it or nicks and like that, I throw it in the good pile or the bad pile. When I throw it to the bad pile, boom, they grab it and they check it out. They go, "Oh, what's wrong with this one?" I said, "It's 0.02 of an inch from being rejected." That means it goes back in. I said, "Really? 0.02 of an inch? You want me to put it back in, build an engine to minimum standards?" Yes, that is how we designed and built this aircraft. You will assemble the engines with parts at their maximum wear as long as it has not gone beyond. I said,
Because the minimum wouldn't be good enough if it wasn't
That
the
is
minimum.
absolutely. You were making the hair on the back of my neck stand up right now.
So I told them, I said, that pilot has an expectation of performance, whether he's in a dogfight for his life or whether he's doing a training mission or cross country. When he hits that throttle, he has to have an expectation that no matter what jet he gets in, has the same throttle response. So he knows what he can predict and do and accomplish. I says, but if we have an aircraft that's moving slower, it takes him longer to spool up because we're not moving as much air because we have too much wear in the blades. Well, I've got a slug of an engine and have a pilot who may find himself in an unusual flight dynamic and he has to eject or make a collision. So they watched me rebuild 2 or 3 engines that week. They had a counseling with me and the leadership in the shop. And I told them, I says, as far as I'm concerned, you wasted a week of your time, with all due respect. I will continue to build engines the way I demonstrated because I am not going to put my reputation on the line and put out an engine that may harm a pilot and his co-pilot, his Rio in the back seat. And my chain of command supported me, and I continue to gold plate engines. And never heard about it again.
Thank you.
Well done, Marine.
Thank you for that.
Love it.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely love it.
So repairable parts. There's a lot of parts on the aircraft that you don't get to keep or throw away when they're bad. They're called repairable. They send them to a higher level of maintenance where they inspect them and make the repairs and put them back into the supply chain. So we had a aircraft maintenance officer who had a huge exposure and he fell in love with somebody in supply chain because he was going to be the officer to fix the supply chain problem in naval aviation.
Oh.
So we were not going to have spare parts.
That guy. Okay.
Now, anyone who flies or works in a squadron knows that you have as many spare parts as you can humanly acquire, and you order parts from the supply chain, but they're ready to install at that moment. And we
Even if you have to wander next door and grab them, right?
Yes. And so the repairables are the hard ones to get because you have to sign for any repairable component. Let's say main fuel control. So when you order one, they deliver it. They want the core exchange back when you sign for it. So what we would do is strategically order a bunch of stuff for a massive delivery. And then we would distract the supply Marine who's there with paperwork for us to sign. And we failed to sign for that main fuel control. Now I got a spare main fuel control. And I didn't give them a core exchange, that type of stuff. And we had probably the best spare parts on the base because other squadrons would come to us because they'd heard how legendary it was. And the AMO had a big meeting, said he's dead serious, and he's going to have non-judicial punishment, which is known as office hours in the Marine Corps for the Navy people, captain's mass, but where they can take your money and take away your stripes and restrict your liberty and things of that nature. And if they find any spare parts, consumable or repairable, they wanted us to get rid of our consumables as well, which is the things you throw away, and to make the supply chain work. And so we cautioned him. All of a sudden, our full mission capable status took a nosedive hard, below the hard deck, if you want to say, and crashed and burned. So he took all the heat he could get. He couldn't get the supply chain fixed. Fast forward about 3 months, he had a meeting. He wanted us to go get all of our parts back. Now, we all know you give away your parts, you ain't getting them back.
No way.
So it took us about 1.5 years to rebuild our legendary inventory. Now we're on Westpac, a overseas deployment for 6 months to the Orient, mainland Japan, Iwakuni, Japan, Marine Corps Station there, Iwakuni. And we would island hop to South Korea, the Philippines, Thailand, Australia. Well, we happened to be in South Korea, Kunsan Air Force Base. Had a good deployment there. Tagged a few of their aircraft, some of their static displays with spray paint and labels indicating that we were here. And didn't look ugly. Didn't look ugly like it does in the ghetto, but it was respectable looking.
Tasteful.
Yes, tasteful. And so with that, it was nighttime. We're leaving about 2200 or 10 p.m. And we're wheels up in the well on this. I think we were on a C-130 at that time. And my second in charge, my assistant non-commissioned officer in charge, he says, "Hey, JC." I said, "What's going on, Bernard?" That's our Arterburn. And he said, "Something I got to tell you." I said, "Well, what's that?" He said, "Now that we're wheels up in the well and we're not going back, we're 100% on our repairables." Get out of here. How did you find the remaining two things? And what we were missing was a AB flame sensor for the FA-18 Hornet. And we were missing
Afterburner.
the purple harness for the AB flame sensor for that part of the fuel system. And those were repairables, but we had never been able to get them because they don't fail that often. And so therefore it's challenging to pull a fast one on supply chain if they don't ever fail. So what Bernard did was he noticed that in the hangar, they use the same aircraft engine. At least they had one there. And he looked at the part numbers and went back and validated before we packed up that afternoon. And so he made a plan that he was going to go in there and steal those two parts off of an RFI engine that was on a stand waiting to be inserted. When he told me, I was livid. I said, "Yeah, you freaking kidding me? Some airman's going to get his ass chewed because he signed for it as a collateral duty inspector that this engine is ready for installation and didn't have it. And so therefore, you just affected someone's career." He says, no, relax. I said, "What do you mean relax?" He said, "It's cool. I left a note on the engine." I said, "What did it say?" He says, "You're missing an AB flame sensor and a purple harness. I needed them more than you did." All right.
Oh, that's rich. That is rich. Well, when did you show up at the drill field for in Pensacola?
Pensacola was my third tour as a drill instructor.
Oh shit! All right, so
my passion in life. Once I decided I want to be a career Marine. In fact, I didn't want to be a career Marine. I wanted to at least be a drill instructor before I got court-martialed and kicked out. And so I did my first tour as a sergeant.
Another show title.
So I did my first tour as a sergeant at Parris Island, and I was investigated for misconduct in every platoon that I trained. Now, I was innocent of the allegations. I was guilty every day of doing things that are not in accordance with the SOP, the Standard Operating Procedure, which is punishable by court-martial. And but those things that I did that were in violation, the recruits never alleged against me. It was just that those who wanted out of boot camp, because you can't quit in boot camp, they thought if they make a big stink, we'll get rid of them. And it doesn't work that way. And so with that, they make false allegations. But you're always stressed out when they investigate because they might find something that actually happened.
yeah, yeah.
So I survived that. And when I survived, I thought, oh my God, I got 9 years in the Marine Corps and I still have my career intact. And I thought maybe I'll make it a career out of this. So at the 10-year mark, I re-enlisted. I went back to the drill field a second tour, trained recruits, and read an article where a Marine Master Gunner Sergeant did 4 tours. He did 3 at Parris Island, and he did 1 at a college. And I thought, I want to do 5, all of them at Parris Island, and
there you go.
And do 1 per pay grade as possible. And so with that, I did my second tour there and had a blast. And when I missed it after 3 years, I did my third tour, and I called the Special Assignments Branch that determines where you get to go if you want special duty, like embassy duty, drill instructor duty, School of Infantry, instructor duty, all those special duty assignments. So person answers the phone and I said, Gunnery Sergeant Crouch here. I'd like to go back to being a drill instructor for another tour. And I knew the monitor quite well. And the monitor is the person who makes those decisions. And he agreed that I can go back because I got a great overseas deployment date. I mean, I'm constantly deploying. So I'm doing my time in the Corps. I just want to spend time between deployments back on the drill field. So he says, you're in, you're going. I'll have you out of here at whatever time when I got back from my deployment. The message traffic a few days later comes through and it says denied. So I call him back up. I said, we had a deal. What's going on? He says, Major Judge. And right there, I knew I'm screwed. He was my former executive officer who on my second tour, I managed to get in a lot of trouble too for investigations. I was always found innocent, but they always kind of believed I was dirty. And but I was telling you, I was innocent of what I was alleged against.
Second tour, hey, JC, second tour was in the C-130?
No. So I left C-130s at the 5 months.
Second tour on the drill field.
Yes.
Yes.
The drill instructor.
Sorry,
each tour at that time was 2 years. It's been 3 years since 1996, but there were 2-year tours up until 1996. So 87, 88, I'm a drill instructor. November 90, November 92, I'm a drill instructor. And so when I applied in 1995 in the spring to go back at the end of the year, I was told no. And then I told the monitor says, well, what about officer candidate school? I says, there's no way I would ever consider going to Quantico. He says, I thought you wanted to be a drill instructor. I said, there is no way I'm going to Quantico to be a drill instructor, because if I do, it is assured I will be court-martialed. I am not that professional to survive that tour of duty. And so I'd already had friends who had done that tour of duty, so I had a good feel for what you could and could not do.
Yeah.
He says, you get that much fire in the gut? I says, I'm 35 years old. I'm not retired on active duty. I'm in the best shape of my life. And I got that much fire in the gut. So he calls me back a couple of days later. He made some conversations with Pensacola. And he calls back. He says, you still want to be a drill instructor? I says, yes. Would you wear the green belt to go back on the drill field? I said, yes, but it'd be stupid to have me with 4 years experience wear the green belt. Now, the green belt or the black belt is how you define who the drill instructor is that's on your team and their role. Only one has a black belt. It's called the senior drill instructor. And they're kind of like a parental dad. They can be abusive or they can be loving, but they can play all the roles in between. And that's the only source of any fatherly or uncle comfort that these recruits can ever have.
Right.
And to build loyalty and trust so that he can protect the drill instructors who wear the green belt, the assistant drill instructors. And they'll wear this huge green cartridge belt with a huge brass plate.
Eagle globe and anchor on it. Yeah, it's beautiful.
So you see those, there is no nice guy. Every one of them is evil. And I said, if that's what it takes, yes.
Show title.
So if that's what it takes, yes. And so I said, what do you got? He says, Navy Officer Candidate School, Pensacola. I said, tell me more about it. He says, well, they want intense drill instructors who are not old and retired on active duty. We call it road program. You just stop performing, right?
Yeah.
I says, well, that's me. I'm 100% Energizer. I said, do you wear the campaign cover, which is the drill instructor hat? And they said, yes. I said, do I get proficiency pay, pro pay? Yes. No, not proficiency, but SDA, special duty assignment pay. And they said, yes. I said, how important is close order drill? Very important. And do I have the pleasure of torturing their body with incentive physical training, which is calisthenics? Yes. I said, sign me up. And so when I went there, I found out it was like this is 1996. It's like going back to 1976 as far as what the culture was like. And it was awesome. Now, none of us were abusers, no hands-on, but the SOP was about 80 pages thick, about maybe pushing 3/4 of an inch to an inch. But SOP for recruit training was a 3-inch binder, and it was tight. And that's what you would be punished for at Parris Island. And the rules of what you could not do were minuscule, which is the way it should be for mature men and women who are drill instructors with lots of experience. And so I got there and thought everything was cool. And then they threw one on me. They said, there's going to be women in your class. I thought, oh, no, because the Marine Corps, there was gender separation, separate but equal.
Yeah.
And although I had females in aviation and I respected the hell out of them, and I was a big defender of them to have equality and whatnot, and how they were treated and the positions they got in my department. They were high performers, but I didn't want to be in a recruit training scenario with my profane mouth and my theatrical violence and things of that nature with females not knowing how they would respond.
Right.
And, so that very first class, after I spent 7 days risking my career with them, what we call indoctrination. And at recruit training for enlisted recruits, they call it recruit receiving. So it's what you do before you start your actual training, getting your uniforms, getting your equipment, dental, all that type of appointments are occurring. So you're doing all that with them, indoctrination, until they start training. So I PT'd the snot out of them and all these other games to get as many people to quit as possible. And because the idea is attrition is the mission, and the mission was good. And we wanted to put as much pressure on them as we could, because the last thing you want, now granted, this is carryover from aviation officer candidate school, the culture. It'd only been 2 years since aviation officer candidate school closed its doors. And they took that student pipeline and merged them with Navy OCS and homogenized it and took away the aviation element. But the way I looked at it, some of these people are going to become officers who are in aviation or other critical jobs. And we don't want an officer who has self-doubt, who has fear of the unknown.
Right.
I don't like the idea of them coming in with a game book, knowing exactly how it's going to play out, play by play. It should be the unknown and how well can they handle those stresses. So I did everything I could to create stresses, artificial stress, so they would have a reason to, this ain't for me, I quit. And so with that, at the end of the first week, I dismissed the class from a classroom instruction I gave. I said, you 3 females stay. And so they were standing position attention when all the males were gone. I said, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm very intense. I'm very profane, as you've seen. Now, if you have a problem with my language or the way I train, you better have the physical courage to request permission to speak to me in private. If you want someone to be with you, not a problem. If you want someone to be your advocate, speak on your behalf because you lack that courage, fine. But I better not hear problems up the chain of command that you're complaining about my methodologies. No one gave me advice on how to deal with this issue. So is that understood? And they all sounded off ballistically, yes, sir. As I turned to leave, Officer Candidate Mary Wise, I'd love to find her someday. She spoke, requested permission to speak. And she was built like a big German beer Hun that carries 8
Steins.
beer steins in each hand.
Right.
A big German woman looking very intense. And she ended up becoming a guide. She was really intense, which is the person who carries the guide on stick with the flag that designates what the name of that class is.
For the unit, sure.
219 or 6. And she requested permission to speak. I said, what is it? She said, sir, these officer candidates only request we be treated as genderless warriors, in a very intense manner, right? I said, are you speaking for yourself? Are you speaking for everyone? And then the other 2 chimed up, all of us, sir. I says, as it said, as it shall be. And from that point forward, my female always locked down my new class, because when you train, you are the only drill instructor for that class. And you have 2 to 3 classes at a time. So the classes in the program were 2 weeks apart. So I'd have a class in NDOC, a class in maybe week 7, another one getting ready to commission and graduate. So I'm bouncing from class to class to class. So when I get my new ones in, my female or females from one of the other classes would talk to my females and tell them that, contrary to popular belief, you'll enjoy being trained by him, but you will be strong. And from push-ups and whatnot.
That's awesome.
So here's the problem. The human body of the male and the female are usually a little bit different. And so you got the M1 Garand rifle, and you're standing there at port arms, which is bisecting the neck and shoulder at a 45-degree angle to the inside of the hip. You got your weapon just like that. And it's supposed to be 4 inches from the chest. All of us Marines know that. Tight grip, all that stuff. Now I'm teaching a rifle manual to my very last class. And I did what I always did. I always grab at the same point, which is dead center on the chest. I'm going in there and making forceful adjustments to get it direct the way I want it. And with force and energy and intensity with my words of encouragement. And I get to her. Now she's a short thing. The rifle comes up to her armpit, the M1 Garand rifle, believe it or not, which is heavy as hell. And so she's this big rifle and her little stubby arms, because she's only about 5'1". So she's got a proportionate arms. So the length that she can get that, she can't get it 4 inches from her body. On top of that, she's built like Dolly Parton.
Oh, geez.
And I come in and I grip very intensely like I always do. And in my head, I'm saying to myself, that's not a weapon. That's soft. And my fingertips are squeezing soft tissue. And so she gave no yelping whatsoever, but I know it had to hurt. And so I tried to control my facial tension so it wouldn't look like I noticed. And I thought to myself, mental note, mental note, mental note. When I get to her, I have to go out to the far ends of the rifle to the flash suppressor and the butt stop, and I make your adjustment. So if you were watching from afar, you can see me chest, 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 boom, out there to compensate for her.
Oh,
and,
my gosh.
But she turned out to be an awesome, awesome young officer, and still connected.
That's great. And another show title. That's not a weapon.
So I tell you about
dear God.
You want to hear? I'll tell you a couple about the general's driver. The dress blue jacket.
Whoops.
The dress blue jacket. Awesome jacket. Beautiful jacket. It's one of the things that women love. They're impressed by it. Although my military bearing intensity back then was much to be sought after. I'd score myself about a 2 on my professional intensity and the way I looked. So I still had a lot of growing to do as an NCO. But nonetheless, that when I got issued my blues, I thought, wow, I didn't have to pay for them. They're free. And I got 2 sets. And so I took great care of them. I wear them all the time. And the general had at least 2 events a week, usually like a Wednesday or Thursday evening. Another one would be Friday or Saturday night. And so I would take him to these events. And so this particular night, I came back and I dropped off the assistant commanding general at Tustin Air Station. But I had to return the car to where the headquarters was, which is at Marine Corps Station El Toro. My house was kind of like between the 2 of them. Now it's like 12:30 in the morning, just past midnight. I'm parched. I want a Coke. I want a Hostess cupcake. So I go to the house, stealthily walk in. I'm not married yet. I'm just living with this lady. And as I open the door and come in my blue uniform, she's sitting in the rocking chair, which I've really never seen her sit in the rocking chair. She's been waiting for me. Apparently her libido is off the charts that night, and she wanted me. I says, I'll be back in 30 minutes. Now, what stupid Marine says I'll be back in 30 minutes, right?
Right.
But that was me, Mr. Naive. And
One who's got 2 generals to answer to.
She says, now. And so I obeyed her. And so I start taking off my clothes, and of course, the jacket carefully. I'm ready for action. She says, put the jacket back on. Jacket back on. Going to town. Having a good time. Trying different yoga positions.
Sure.
And the next day, I actually carried my uniform to work, and I just wore civilian attire in the general's car, hoping I wouldn't get stopped at the gate. Why you're driving the general's car in civilian attire? But so I hung up my jacket in my wall locker. The next day, I come to work. I have an event to wear it that afternoon, like 3:00, 1500. Horror hits my face. I can't believe what I see. I have ruined my jacket. Now remember, this is the age before the internet, 1983. And no one has the access to the internet at that point, really. And the people who have knowledge are people you don't want to talk to because they're your parents, people like that. And so I'm looking at the evidence of a Monica Lewinsky moment. I've got human DNA all over it. It's my DNA.
Oh,
It's all over my jacket. And so with that, I'm terrified because I got to have this jacket ready to go. And how I'm going to explain on the lower lapel down here, this huge white stain. And so I take it to the cleaners on base and request 1 hour dry cleaning. I said, and would you treat for this stain, please? Now, this lady, unfortunately, was not the one that I wanted to come to me. Now, there is a lady there that had a crush on me. She never knew it, but I did. And a very attractive young lady, about 18 years old. She's the one that came out. And the other one who works the front desk was taking care of this woman and her two kids with her. So she says, and what's the stain? I says, is it really important? Oh, yes. We use different chemicals because we don't want to risk setting the stain if we use the wrong chemical. Oh, in that case, and I look, I whisper, and says, I had sex last night. And she looks at me and says, it's sperm. He puts it down. Apparently, she wasn't my kind of woman. And she went in the back all flustered. So I thought, great, who's coming out next? Because it ain't going to be her, right? So about 2.5 minutes later, out comes this like 60-year-old woman who's angry beyond belief. And she grabs the pen and starts writing all this stuff and gives me my freaking ticket. I come back an hour later, gone. Fast forward a couple of decades, I learned on the internet it's water soluble. I could have removed it myself, but hey, who was I going to ask?
Who knew? Who knew?
Another show title. She wasn't my kind of woman.
She wasn't my kind of woman.
Oh, keep them coming there, JC.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Here's a fighter pilot story for you. So he's been dead several years now, but he was the commanding general, 3rd Mile, Major General Clayton Comfort Clay. He was a Korean War fighter pilot, later on Vietnam War fighter pilot, and now he's commanding general, 83, 84 for 3rd Marine Air Wing. My time is up. I got to go back to aviation. I've been doing his job for 1.5 years as his driver. So I was part of the interview process of selecting the next driver, and it was Corporal Jerome. And Corporal Jerome seemed to be a young, motivated young Marine and seemed to have a good attitude. I worked with him, shadowed as the general myself, pretending to be him while getting him to learn the ropes of driving the vehicle and taking certain types of methodologies of braking and whatnot. And he's ready for show and tell time. He's taking his first ride with the general. He's going down to Kent Pendleton. Now, I told him that back then, the national speed limit, no matter where you were, was 55.
Yep.
I said, you can speed as long as you show respect to the cops. Always be looking for the cops. You see a cop, slow your ass down. Don't be flaunting it in his face. They'll let you go, but don't be obscene about it. And respect them. Have the lights on, because back then you didn't have your headlights on unless you're from Canada. Or you're the general's driver, driving a government vehicle.
Yeah.
And I says, and you can drive up to 70, 80 miles an hour. They're not going to bother you. And you're safe. So he comes back and I says, tell me about your first drive with the general. He says, got pulled over by a state trooper. How's that possible? I've known nobody who's ever gotten pulled over driving a general's car, because there's 3 generals on base. Major General Cook, Ernest Cook was the other one. And none of us ever got pulled over for anything. And I talked to the general drivers at other Kent Pendleton, everywhere else. No one gets pulled over. He says, well, the general he was passed out sleeping back there. He had the newspaper over his face, catching some Z's. And all of a sudden he feels it pull off on the shoulder of the interstate. And he pulls it down. He says, what's going on? Is there a problem? No, sir. I'm being pulled over by a state highway patrol. He says, well, were you speeding? He says, oh, no, sir. And I says, and were you speeding? He says, yeah. I said, how fast? He said, about 75. Well, back then you could get out of your car and go talk to the cop without getting shot. So he gets out of the car, walks back to talk at the bumper with the cop, pulls out his driver's license, gives it to the cop. The general gets tired of waiting. He starts thinking about things. He gets out of the car. Now, he's no short guy. He's about 6'2". Whatever the height was, I know he was at the maximum height to get in the A4 Skyhawk. And because his helmet, when the seat was fully seated, was like 1 inch from the canopy. And he gets out of the car and he walks up to the Corporal Jerome, and the officers inside his highway patrol vehicle running the driver's license. and there's no plate to run. It's just a huge red plate with two huge chrome stars the size of my fist. And so he's running the driver's license. A couple minutes later, he gets out and he comes up to talk to the general. He gives a greeting to the general. He says, "Good morning, General." He says, "Good morning, officer. What's going on here?" He says, "Well, your driver is going to get a ticket for speeding. He's doing 75 miles an hour." No, he's not. He didn't have a choice. You're going to write a ticket. You're going to write a ticket for me. And he said, "Well, I'm not going to write a ticket for you, General, because that'd be against the law. You were not operating the vehicle. Your driver was, however, operating the vehicle at the time that I witnessed him speeding and pulled him over. He will receive the ticket. Corporal Jerome, get in the car." Corporal Jerome is a good Marine. He does what he's told. He gets inside the car. He cranks down the window because we didn't have, it was a government vehicle in 1978.
There's no air conditioning.
78 Plymouth Grand Fury, and it had window crank handles. He cranks it down so he could hear the conversation, adjust the mirror to watch what's going on. General waits until he's in the vehicle, and the general said, "Officer," and he reaches in his pocket and he pulls out his driver, says, "I'm going to give you one last chance. You will write me a ticket. You are not writing a ticket for Corporal Jerome." And he replied, "General, I've told you, and I'm not going to change my opinion. You will not receive a ticket." And before he could finish his sentence, the general put his driver's license back in his wallet, put it in his pocket. He says, "Well, I guess you're not writing tickets today," and took the driver's license off the clipboard, turned around and got in the vehicle and says, "Take off." So Jerome puts the blinker on, there's a safe ingress back into traffic. And General says, "Get that speedometer fixed so we don't get pulled over again." And so I asked Jerome, I says, "Hey, what'd the cop do?" He said, "Well, I kept watching the mirror." And he was looking behind him, looking on the other side of the interstate, like, is there another cop that's going to back me up? What am I going to do in this situation? This could be an international incident because he's a Marine Major General and a lot of highway patrol. They're former military anyways. And it's just an ugly situation. So I guess he just let it go. But what great leadership that the commanding officer is willing to put it all on the line. And,
You're not writing a ticket today.
He just stands there. Oh man, that's awesome.
So he was like a very, very conservative opinion of culture. So one night I'm driving the wife and the adult daughter back from an event from Anaheim. We were watching the Scottish Black Watch drill platoon. And what it is, their version of a Marine Corps silent drill team, only they don't have rifles. They just have kilts with feathers hanging off of their calves, and they've got knives, fighting knives attached to their calf muscle, and they're marching back and forth across the stage for an hour and a half. And they're beating, and the drums are beating. So it doesn't have the pomp and circumstance of a 20-minute silent drill team performance of flipping rifles, showing incredible talent. But they're just a bunch of hairy men with kilts on, with their knives and their calves, marching back and forth. I didn't find it that entertaining that night. So we're driving back. We're going through Anaheim at that time on the interstate. It's like 6 lanes wide each direction. Well illuminated. Hardly any cars at all. I'm talking, you've got within eyesight, front and rear, 6 cars. Wow. And I thought, wow, this is really cool driving this late at night and not having all this traffic. And I'm very concerned about defensive driving, possible attacks, because we got the big plate saying who we are. And it's a VW microbus from the late 60s. And if you were trying to imagine, what's a hippie van look like? It had the big peace symbol painted on it. It had all kinds of colors on it. And he's by himself, this long-haired hippie, if you want to say that's a hippie. And he's just parallels us now. And he's just gawking. And he goes, wow, I've never seen something so ritzy. And so he spends like 30 seconds gawking at us. He takes off now. And what he does this. I saw it. The daughter saw it. The wife behind me saw it, but what the Major General saw is
the bird.
He believes in his mind he saw the single finger, And what he really did was, put a knife hand up there like, hey, y'all be cool. And he starts taking off. Damn it, he just flipped me off. The daughter starts shrieking again. I guess it's the common occurrence. And his wife, I think her name is Artis, she says, oh, Clay, he did not. I wasn't getting involved in a family dispute. I'm a corporal in the Marine Corps. He's my boss. My mouth is shut. I forget this conversation is occurring around me. Corporal Crouch, get behind him now. Boom, I change lanes. No, you don't, Corporal Crouch. Get back over. I ignore her. Corporal Crouch, I said get over. The general says, close the distance. I want you 3 feet from his bumper. And so now here we are. Someone who's probably a great patriot, love the military, probably a proud supporter of it, love America. At that point, we just created a terrorist, in the modern world.
Right.
And so put the high beams on. Boom, the high beams are on now. We're harassing this hippie who loved patriotism. And now he didn't understand what the problem is. And now I'm behind him with the high beams on, closer. Now I'm like a foot from him, doing like 60 miles an hour down the interstate. I doubt you could get more speed out of the VW microbus. And so Artis says, I'm so disappointed in you, Corporal Crouch. So disappointed. And I said, ma'am, I work at the pleasure and for the commanding general. And he is the only person that I take orders from when he is present. And I could see this smile come across his face and his eyes light up that was the appropriate answer in the rearview mirror, but not Artis. Oh, no, she didn't find that humorous or loving or anything. She was so disappointed that a Marine would put his obedience to instant willing obedience to orders ahead of anything else, whether I agreed with it or not. But yep, I had a great time doing that job.
That's awesome. Well, I'll go back to the drill field for a little bit. What's your record for collecting DORs in a class?
I never tracked them. I can tell you that the average at OCS during my time period, because there's been increases and decreases over the years based on the needs of the Navy. During my tenure, the average class size would start somewhere around 40 to 45. Sometimes as high as 55 was the most, but by the 11th week, they had to be down to 52 because that was the maximum number of people they could fit in the classroom for naval navigation. And so that was our threshold, that we knew we could somehow attract some people to get down to 52 by then. But typically it was about 40, 45. And by the end of the first week, I'd usually have somewhere around 6 on the low side to maybe 9 on the high side. DORs in the first 7 to 10 days. There was never a quota. There was never a limit. But I can tell you many a time I would be told, you just had your last DOR. What am I supposed to do? I can't help it that they choose to quit.
Yeah. And now you got to go be all nice.
I didn't.
Please don't quit. Well, you sent us several pictures. I want to put one up here.
Oh, the rifle.
Is that a post hole digger?
It is. That's me out in the sand pit that we would torture them for incentive physical training, and where we PT them until they wished that they were somewhere else, until their body was hot, sweaty, a quivering mass of jelly, and covered with sand on their skin, clinging to it. And if you do it early in the day, because they wear the wash khaki uniform. And so the wash khaki uniform is a tan uniform. It's kind of like a short sleeve dress shirt tucked in with tan trousers and spit shine shoes that are no longer spit shined after going to the pit. And with that, they would spend the whole day feeling sand between their clothing, and that would just make them miserable for the whole day. Well, the rule was I want them to be successful. So I don't do things for my own pleasure of, I'm on a power trip. I want to mess with these people. It was never about that. It was about setting incredible standards that they had to work extremely hard to meet those standards. And I told them, I said, I'm gonna tell you right now, the fastest way to end your career as an officer is to violate security. You're all going to have a security clearance to have access to secret, top secret, and classified material. And if you leave a safe preset, you leave a safe unlocked or open, even worse, you basically ended your career. whether in your first year or your 15th year, you have screwed yourself over so bad. And you don't want that to happen. So anytime that we leave our room, our padlock will be locked on the wall locker. Nobody will get into it. You will never write down that combination or that of your roommates. And so they would ignore me and they would write down their combinations. They would rotate the lock dial and get it set. So all you have to do is pull it or rotate it to the last number. And so we would try those techniques when they were gone. Well, I got my hands on a rifle one day, and I could usually find a rifle just about any given day, but I'd find that rifle and I would take it with me. And the first thing I do.
So let me describe this real quick. There's a picture of JC on his knees and his elbow, and he's shoulder deep in a hole in the middle of a sand pit with a post hole digger there laying next to him. So you have at the end of your hand, I can only assume, is an M1.
Yes, at the end of the M, it's an M1 Garand, separate the upper receiver from the lower receiver, so I wouldn't have to dig so deep. And I would lower it so at least 12 inches, 10 to 12 inches below the top of the sand. And that's important because it should be hard. And so before I take it out there, I lay it down on usually their desk in the four-man room. They have 4 individual desks pushed together in the middle, 4 racks, 4 wall lockers. So I would take this wall locker and I would make it explode. So now I'm inside the wall locker. I lay the rifle down, and then I go ahead and I take all the items that they've been carefully folding so that the measurements are perfect. 6-inch t-shirt, 6 inches by 6 inches. And the tolerances are within 1/8 of an inch variance is what you're allowed. And they have to have that always perfectly set up. All the hangers facing the same direction, all the like items in the same sequencing, and then evenly spaced between them, and the outer ones grounded to the outside edge. We create a lot of things they have to memorize and then practice. And that teaches attention to detail, just like if you're in a cockpit. And so with that, I take all this stuff out. I destroy it as far as its folding and formatting. And how many knots can you put in a necktie? 14. I know. I put 14 knots in a necktie one time. And so I then take the foot powder. They're all issued foot powder. Johnson's foot powder. I recommend it. And I pull off the lid and I go like that. And I make all the content come out. And then I run out, close the door behind me. I wait 5 minutes because I'm a patient man. Come back in. And then I pick up the rifle. And when I do, there's this perfect chalk outline of where there was a rifle. I had taken a picture. If smartphones were available back then, I would be so happy. But how many of us took cameras with us everywhere we went, right?
Right.
And think that we could appreciate them later. But you seen the chalk outline on a 1950s murder movie, laying in the street, chalk outline. Same thing with the rifle. And so then now the door is shut when I leave. The doors are only allowed to be shut during taps to reveille. So when they return from academics and they see the door shut, they know that something bad just happened. And they open it and they see an incredible amount of work. And they may have a scheduled serious junk in the bunk inspection, which is everything you own set up. It's also known as room locker personnel inspection or military training tests. There's different words, but the bottom line is everything you own is set out for inspection. Just like that, properly made wreck. With a rifle fully disassembled. And so with that, I would then take those components, the upper and lower receiver, and I'd bury them in the pit. And then I'd cover it up with sand. And then I would wet the pit because I don't want them to see where I was at. And so when they start, I'd PT them for a long period of time. And then through push-ups, side starter hops, bends and thrusts, 8-count bodybuilders, just PTing the snot off them. And then I give them a rest period. This is find my rifle. Right now, they can't communicate, but they have to learn how to work as a team through thought. And they would try to get online shoulder to shoulder, and they're using their fingers trying to dig. I learned one day that they were trying to get through the crust to find that they're digging. All of a sudden, it's all soft. That's where the hole is. Or recently, there was a hole. And so I learned about that. And so from talking to candidates at the last 2 weeks of training when we treat them like humans, then they tell us all kinds of stuff when we ask. And then I know that next class,
intel.
They're not getting away with it. So I would water down the whole pitch so they wouldn't know. And so then I would get the class when they return from class. I say, get your rifles, get online now. They go back down to get the rifles. Boy, some candidate will step forward. Sir, Officer Kenneth Smith does not have his rifle, sir. Oh, are we missing a rifle, huh? Well, what do you say we get on our choppers and go look for it? Get on your motorcycles now. So if you remember the movie Easy Rider with the big 8 hangers,
Yep.
imagine you're up against the bulkhead in the hallway like this. You got your rifle. Now you're holding it. We call it the electric chair. And after a while, your whole body starts quivering. Well, the one without the rifle has to get behind the president because that was the title. Instead of guide, the senior person, the senior candidate was called the president, class president.
Okay.
Oh, Rick, you don't have your freaking rifle, do you? Well, you need to write, bitch, get behind the president now. So he's up against the wall. The president gets in his crotch. I said, hang on, boy. These bikes go fast. I don't want you falling off. So now he's got to hug the president while he's out there holding the rifle. And I said, well, you know my song. You know I love Harleys. So let me hear it. And they start singing Steppenwolf, Born to be Wild. Get your motor running down the highway. Looking for adventure. I don't remember the rest of the lyrics, right?
Yeah.
So they're dying out there because I give humor and pain together. And when you have humor and pain together, you can take more pain a lot longer.
Sure.
And but apparently, those who didn't do art loved the experience they had because 14 of them came to my wedding 6 years ago from across the country to be there to find out who is this woman that was willing to marry John Crouch.
That is outstanding.
She should have been a drill instructor and a Marine, but she wasn't. She's a civilian, a great patriot, but she should have. She would have made a great drill instructor. So her and I have constant attention to details, competitions around the house. It doesn't matter what it is. And she keeps beating me on attention.
I was going to say, I bet you lose.
Oh, that's rough.
Times.
Oh.
That's rough. Good stuff.
God.
But I got hours.
I'm in
and
pain.
hours. I can go as long as you guys want to go.
I'm just in pain. That's
Hey, so there's a picture.
Hilarious.
There's a picture that was up here a little bit ago, and it looks like they're standing in the pit. No, not that one.
Oh, not that one. All right. Oh, the
they've
pit with
got
the blankets.
The blankets. Yeah. Tell me what is going on in this.
So there's a
So hold on. Let me describe it for the listeners because we do our mostly audio. So there's several officer candidates, and they appear to be that they've got a blanket, and they appear to be holding it up at their arms slightly wider than shoulder width apart, and they're looking like headless ghosts or something like that. And then there's a drill instructor standing there,
which
issuing
some motivation.
Yeah.
I was speaking forcefully through the blanket so that he could hear me on the other side. So what would happen is we use blankets in the Marine Corps, at least during my time, as a punishment tool. It's not in any SOP for recruit training or officer training, but those heavy wool blankets that they wear, they have to be cleaned. And the most efficient way to clean them is to shake them out without touching the ground. So you have to stretch them and hold them shoulder width apart and enough material so it does not touch the ground. When I say, pop them, aye, sir. And they start popping them. And I, harder, louder. I want to hear them crack. And they will sound like bull whips if done correctly. And if not, then they're not going to make any snapping sound. I want to hear snapping sound. And so I will PT them to death with this indoors, outdoors.
Beautiful.
It's horrible. And there's a Navy SEAL that went on to become FBI counterterrorism, federal marshal. His name is Jonathan Gilliam. Awesome warrior.
Okay.
And he loves that photograph and that experience. And he talked about it one day on the show. He said, you said something to us that was so profound. We had been ostracized from everyone because there's INDOC week. So that entire week, and now this is the first day that we moved into battalion where all the other classes are located, and the entire day of punishment that we've been going through, and we don't even know what time of day it is, and we're not sure we know what day of the week it is. It was Saturday, and it was about noontime. My cutoff time that I had to be gone, I think, was 1300 or 1 p.m., and then I had to be off the deck and away from them to let the upperclassmen take over. So I had them out there in the pit. I was popping them blankets, and I had them hold them up over their head so I couldn't see their face, and they're suffering the pain of holding the blanket up. You can do anything long enough, and it'll be painful. And I told them that when I tell you to take these blankets down, your life will be changed as you know it, and you will never be the same. Those nasty civilian ways that you brought with you better have been shook out. And then I exited the sand pit quietly, and they didn't know I'd left. And what came in was the entire upperclassmen, a few hundred of them, from all of the other classes, and they had brought in Gatorades and candy food and all kinds of crap. And then someone gave the command to lower the blankets, and then they seen the whole candidates there, and then they realized that, holy shit, because they were first, I guess every class is the same way. They're nervous as hell that I can still see them. And
Right.
but I would go somewhere else and hide, like on the roof, and look around the off the edge of the roof and look down. But it was an emotional moment to see them have that first bonding moment with upperclassmen, and to go through that experience.
That's awesome. That's great. Okay, there's another picture where they're
pennies.
they're in their khaki uniforms, and they're posing for a group pic. There it is.
Back up.
It looks like they've been PT'd already, right?
They have. So coincidentally, that was toward the end of training when they really had their act together. That was class 07-908. And so in 1998, the 7th class of the fiscal year, that was them. And missing a lot of bodies. They had rode backwards in training or DOR'd. And I took them out in the pit because they did something deserving of it. Now, this class had a discipline problem. So there's great opportunities in officer candidate school to have liberty to where you can have dessert, or you can have quiet table conversation during meal periods. And you can leave the base and then go enjoy the weekend from when I let go of you until Sunday evening. You could be a civilian again almost. Well, they never really got that privilege because they were constantly screwing up and I was holding them accountable. So this class was, I think, in the 11th week of training. I think it was their very last time I took them to the pit. And they were so proud of that I couldn't defeat their personality. Here's an example. It was the springtime. See, if that's class 7, it was in the springtime, like April or something. And it's already warm in Pensacola. I'm out there PTing them, and next thing you know, they break out into jingle bells, jingle all the way. They're singing carols while I'm PTing their ass in the pit, trying to show me, do what you want there, gunnery sergeant, but you're not going to demoralize us, right?
You're not going to break our will.
We're not afraid of you anymore. So that was great that they had that attitude. And in fact, a great story about women in the program. So when you go back to the one where they're all dirty, her name is Annie Miller. She's the far left screen. She's the one leaning over on her kneecaps with dark hair. And from the far left side, second one in, second row. And I always paid, there's more women in the class at the time that we started. There's another one, a Navy chief there, right behind the one striking a pose like a nude model. And then there's another one right beside it. That's right. I remember the three of them. Those three made it to the finish line. So Annie, I noticed, had no problem on the rifle disassembly class. So you can make anything painful, but I've always believed in being firm but fair. So I gave a good, slow, curative instruction. I got the rifles. They're inside this passageway. And so I'm going to give a class on how you take apart your weapon and how you put it back together. I'll go slow. And I'll answer any questions that you have. And it's the first time they've ever heard me speak like a normal civil human being, right? Because I want to educate them. I'm paying close attention to my 3 females to see which one of them has the least problem, because I'm going to use them as an example. And so I noticed that Miller had no problem on the disassembly of the rifle. And we haven't done the assembly yet, but just the disassembly. So, and I said, no further questions. Great. And we took them apart by the numbers. We put it together by the numbers. Last chance. Any questions? All right. Now you're on the clock. And you're going to pay if you don't meet my freaking clock. I gave them, let's say, 2 minutes to take it apart, which is adequate for someone so early in training. We get the 2-minute mark. She was done early. She's holding her upper receiver over her head like that, like she's supposed to. And now she's been holding it for like a minute and a half or whatever. And everyone's starting to get tired. So now we've gone from 2 minutes to 5 minutes. Now I'm really wearing them out. They're suffering. I finally say, Miller, put your piece on the deck, get over there and unfuck his weapon, right? And of course, they know better than to ever communicate verbally in my presence. So she grabs the weapon and out of his hands forcefully, because she's angry that she had to go through all that pain because he couldn't disassemble his freaking weapon. She disassembles it real quick, hands him the piece. He's not holding it up. And what I just did opened doors. And I tell you how. All these male jocks who are about 24 years old already still have that high school, college mentality. Women are not our equal. They're weak. They're not as smart as us. They're not as fast as us. And what I just showed them is a female in this class was able to correct a male officer candidate's screw up who couldn't follow instructions and lacked the coordination and strength to disassemble the trigger guard assembly to break that weapon down. And that was the first time that they had an opportunity to start accepting them. And so then I would have them put it together on the numbers. But, I don't believe in training people separately. I believe in training them with one standard. And whether I was a drill instructor or whether I was a Marine in the fleet, in aviation, I always had one standard. Well, I thought female cologne perfume was a distraction. So they were all issued Aqua Velva, and I made sure my females had Aqua Velva too.
All right.
So
because there's something about an Aqua Velva, man.
So the thing was, I had a squirt bottle of Aqua Velva and had a squirt bottle of Dragon Breath. It's my own concoction. It's 50% Listerine and 50% Viadent mouthwash. Now, it tasted like Scotch whiskey. If you ever tasted Scotch, it's just a horrible sensation when you put it in your mouth. And I only did it because it's miserable. I didn't do it because I was really concerned about dental hygiene, but I learned from the drill instructor who taught me, Sergeant Michael J. Kenneth, who taught me how to be a great effective drill instructor. He made them brush it reveille, breakfast, lunch, dinner, taps. 5 times a day, they brush their fangs. And so I carried that forward all my years as a drill instructor, that my recruits and my officer candidates would have great breath, because great breath means I don't get offended by their nasty breath, and neither does anybody else. And so I would tell them at the very beginning of training, you've got dental floss. For those of you who don't know what dental floss is, ask somebody who does. They'll show you what that component looks like in your damn shaving kit. Number 2, you will learn to use it. If you don't know how to use it, I recommend you talk to somebody who does. You will remove lots of food and other things, and you're probably going to be bleeding profusely for about 15 to 20 days. But eventually, that biological war in your gum line is going to go away, and you're going to have decent breath. And you will clean your mouth the way I had you do it every freaking day, after every meal, before you eat meal, and all that stuff, right? So the other drill instructors call me the Scooby-Doo platoon, showing the big fangs, because when they would dump their book bags, out would come a hygiene kit for teeth, toothpaste and a toothbrush and dental floss. And so if I ever found someone with nasty breath, I'd make them get their canteens and fill them up to the top, and they're a Listerine bottle. And then I would have them take a drink so that there's now space. And then I'd have them fill up their canteen cap and put it in there, cap it, shake it up, and it would never escape the taste. The taste would never escape for at least 4 or 5 weeks. And which is great, because that means drinking water is miserable too. But another Navy SEAL that I trained told me, he says, hey, when I was out in the field, man, this is great, because I remember how shitty the water tastes. So I said, hey, put some Listerine in there. That would be great. It tastes better. So everything had a good purpose. So we're getting close to a congressional investigation now. I tell you how. So I'm out there and doing a hygiene inspection. So I'd say, when I was done inspecting them from head to toe for injuries and whatnot, and the attention to detail for dental and physical hygiene of nails and whatnot, I'd say, close. At that mean, what it meant was close your eyes and close your mouth. And I'd spray their face 3 squirts with Aqua Velva. And then I'd say, open. And they'd open their mouth, and I'd put 3 squirts of Dragon Breath in there. And I'd say, swish violently. And I told them they're never permitted to swallow, but they just had to swish. Meanwhile, it feels like acid eating away your gum line, because now you got to wait for the other 47 or 35 idiots to get through while I've got this mouthwash just eating away my gum line, is what sensation's like. And then I'd face them to the right and have them go spit it out. If you got my attention because you laughed or snickered when I made a comment of correction to one of my other officer candidates, oh, you want my attention? Good, you got it. Get up here now. And I'd fill it up his freaking mouth. And if they can't follow instructions, they get the sequence of opening and closing wrong. Well, they had their mouth open and they got Aqua Velva, and they had their mouth shut and they got everything soaked with Dragon Breath. everything was cool for about a year and a half. I get called to headquarters at regiment, and I report into the master gunner saying, he goes, "What the fuck am I going to do with you, Crouch? What are you talking about?" He says, "We have an investigation team here, and they are going to read you your rights, and they're going to ask you questions." I says, "Why?" He says, "Well, apparently you're making females wear aquavelva, and you use the word orgasm in the presence of them." Well, there's a reason why. It's about close order drill. And so I went in there, they read me your rights. I've had my rights read to me a lot now, so I'm pretty familiar. I know them better than they do, I think. And for instance, you have the right to an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Yeah. It's just kind of like the Miranda rights, only it's a military version. And so you're told these before you start speaking when they start asking questions. So we're here to ask you a couple questions about allegations that we have received. I says, "Well, I'm curious. These allegations, did they come directly from my officer candidates, or did they come third party from somebody else called hearsay?" "Well, what does that matter?" "It matters significantly." "You can't tell me?" And they said it was third party. I says, "All right, it's a matter of context." I says, "Go ahead, ask your questions." He says, "Well, we have an allegation here that you make your females wear aquavelva, a male cologne." I says, "Now here's the thing I learned many years ago. You can't say, no, it happened like this. No, either it happened or it didn't." I said,
Okay.
"You're absolutely right, I did." And they couldn't believe, they just, like the movie A Few Good Men, they just got the, "You're damn right, I went to Cord Run." They think they've already nailed it, right? And I said, "Absolutely." And they couldn't believe it. One of the three was a female, by the way. She was a lieutenant commander. One was a commander, and I think the second was a lieutenant commander as well. And I know at least one of them was from the JAG office, which is Judge Advocate General, kind of like an attorney, and or a prosecutor, actually, because they're not looking out for my interest. And so I told them, "Well, absolutely." They couldn't believe, their mouth was agape. I said, "Here's the deal. Entry-level training, whether it's enlisted boot camp or whether it's officer training, whether it's all male or whether it is all female or mixed, it really doesn't matter what the mix is. What does matter is that they become a cohesive unit. And that's only possible if they have shared experiences. I don't want the candidates, the majority, being reminded that there's females in the class. You shouldn't fish from the company pond." That terminology that you find romance elsewhere, but not here. And I said, "So if you want, I'll be happy to adjust how this is done. And so on even days, we'll wear aquavelva, and on odd days, we'll wear Chanel No. 5 or Chloe or whatever perfume the ladies want to wear, but they're all going to smell the same. So I don't know if I have a career left. I only know that you can own it. And I'm going to not act like it didn't happen." And I said, "I'd like to know more about this because I know my females extremely well, and from each of my classes, and I know how they feel about me and my methodologies." So earlier you said it didn't come from my class. So exactly what happened is, well, your officer candidates, females, were talking with officer candidates from other classes that were females. And they asked what it was like being trained by Gunnery Sergeant Crouch. Now, apparently, for what my females have told me after they become officers, when reflecting on their experiences, these other female officer candidates were always wanting to know what it was like being trained by me, because I tried to be the most out of control experience that they've ever had. And so they thought I hated females. I didn't. I had great respect for them. I just only had one standard. And so one of the other ladies wrote back to her mother. Her mother was horrified, and she called her congressman. The congressman called, obviously, the commanding, or the admiral, since it's a Navy program, and that's how all that rolled downhill. Okay. Tell us about this drill is like an orgasm quote. I says, yes. I said, I need to ask a question, and it does bear relevance. I said, were any of you Marine Corps trained? What does that have to do with anything? Please answer the question. No. So you were not Marine Corps trained. That means your skill and your appreciation for the art of close order drill is down here where if you're a Marine Corps trained, it's up here. Anyone Marine Corps trained would tell you that drill, close order drill, when done with great intensity, with perfect timing as a unit, where everyone is hitting it with maximum intensity. It sounds like bones are crushing when you drive that weapon into your shoulder for left shoulder arms, that it is perfectly timed and there is no late contact or early release. It is one fluid visual moment that is perfectly synchronized. And when that happens, that is as close as you can get to actual sexual intercourse. It's like a drill orgasm, only it's safer because you don't have an STD. And so I showed them videos of the silent drill team and how they'd done this perfection. I says, I'll be happy to take you to this other room where we've got a videotape player and I can play a tape for you of the silent drill team and or my platoons who have done incredible things. I taught my platoons, two of them, my last two, to throw the weapon and catch it and drop down and give a Queen Anne's salute and stuff like that at the beginning of a drill evaluation. And so when it was all over with, they were beside themselves. I had an awesome master gunner sergeant. His name is Jerry Hotry, and he was a 3-time drill instructor himself. And his second tour was AOCS in the mid 80s. And then he came back to be the chief drill instructor. So sometimes in life, you realize that you should have asked the question, but I didn't. He walked into the changing room a couple of days later. He says, Marines, I need to read you something. Attention to orders. He says, this here is probably the best piece of literature I've ever written. And he was admin filled, his background, right? And he's an awesome storyteller. And so he starts reading. Starts off as the header. Gunner Sergeant Crouch is an Aquavelva man. Convinced to talk about Aquavelva, but not the drill orgasm. Aquavelva. And that he will be happy to accommodate your request of having male cologne on one day and female cologne on the other day, but they're all going to always smell the same. And wrote that letter and submitted it up the chain of command. And that was the end of the story. And
That's beautiful.
I appreciate him for covering for me and not letting me even run up the flagpole, but I was a heat magnet for him for sure, because we had a lot of conversations.
That's beautiful stuff. Oh, wow. Well, JC, we're coming up on almost 2 hours, and sadly, we do need to wrap. I could sit here all night, but we have some other obligations. But we certainly would love to have you back, because I can tell there are millions more stories. In fact, let me mention right up front, right here, right now. I failed to mention this at the beginning. The Pressure Cooker: Forging Naval Officers Through Marine Leadership. It's available on Amazon.com. And we have been speaking for the last 110 minutes plus to the author. So thank you for that. If you'd like to describe just a little bit about that, and then we'll start getting into our thank yous and landing this plane.
Absolutely. And thank you very much. It's the only book that's ever been written to my research on the subject of aviation officer candidate school. And it's about the experiences that the officer candidates had under the tutelage or training or mentoring of the Marine drill instructor. The Marine drill instructors were brought to the program in 1947. And this was actually planned prior to the end of World War II. And the Navy noticed that statistically, Marine second lieutenants performed better in the cockpit than ensigns did. And they tried to find out what is that denominator that's creating that experience. And what they believed was that the NCOs and staff NCOs who were maintaining the aircraft that they were flying were still given mentoring and training to them as young officers in the Marine Corps. They said, you know what? We'll make you a deal, Marine Corps. You don't have to give us a couple hundred aircraft maintainers for all these aircraft down here in Pensacola. Give us your best NCOs, staff NCOs to be drill instructors and let them do the entry-level training for officer corps that's to be aviation. And so from 1947 to 1994, Marine drill instructor by himself was the only person in that position of authority. There was one class officer would be either Navy or Marine Corps. And again, they were pilots. And so that was the intensity of that program. And imagine that we are able to create anywhere from on the short side 14 weeks to the high side 16 weeks, a naval officer, and in earlier years, actually a Marine officer as well, because the Marines sent their aviation officer candidates there from 56 to 1968. And that is a great, great program because the percentage of them, according to Vice Admiral Mike Bowman, I trained his son, he told me that the percentage of aviation officer candidates who got their commission that became squadron commanders is very high, much higher than the Naval Academy and ROTC, which speaks to their leadership that they demonstrated, and probably starts with the way they got filtered.
Oh, shit. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, you have certainly given to your country, your Corps, and the Naval Service, and thank you. That's inadequate words, but thank you for your service.
Right? I know that doesn't seem adequate, but yeah, thank you.
Well, maybe this is adequate.
JC.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, thank you, Sergeant Instructor. Oh, man. I was sitting at attention while I said that. Oh,
I know.
Gosh.
I know.
I don't know if I said this earlier on the show or if it was pre-show or not, but I'm flying with a Marine Cobra pilot this week, and I told him you were coming on to the show, and he's like, "Oh, that voice lives in my nightmares to this day, 25 years later." my drill instructor still haunts my dreams. I'm like, "Yep." Then he did it right. So, indeed. So, thank you very much for your service.
Hoorah. Thank you.
What? Oh, okay, so Fig went mute, so I'm going to roll into landing the airplane here. In addition to thank you for your service, we want to thank all the active duty and veterans who served, and also recognize their families. So many of them have sacrificed time, anniversaries, birthdays, funerals, things like that when the active duty member has been away, and it's a big sacrifice on their part that allows the active duty military members to indeed do their jobs. We also want to thank Dave Hamilton over at the Mac Geek Gab, the Gig Gab, and the Business Brain. And he also runs our advertising for us online at backbeatmedia.com.
I'm back with you now. I was trying to squash background conversation that was coming towards me.
There you go.
So I'm muted.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's see. You can email us at fig@sothereiwas.us, repeat at sothereiwas.us. If you want a really good answer, it's my man Sticks, who's in the background there at sothereiwas.us. He's actually the brains of the operation. If you want a really
right answer.
Yeah. Yeah, it Sticks.
Exactly. And if you've been watching the live stream, or you're watching any of this on YouTube or Rumble or Facebook or X, then you're seeing those banners come up and pictures come up and that sort of thing. And that's Sticks handling 99% of that for us. And that's production help is deeply appreciated. So
huge. It's huge.
Yeah, exactly. And then what else we got there, Fig? You want to wear a?
Listen, it's
I've
spring.
got my cool shirt on
Weather's
underneath.
Changing. Yeah. Oh yeah, you got your shirt
do,
on?
but I forgot to. Yeah, I forgot to.
I'm not wearing
I
any
can't get it on
merch today.
camera.
We
I'm
got a
wearing
merch
my
store.
merch, but yeah.
So there I was.us/merch, and it's bikini season coming up. We have a bikini on there.
Among other things, yeah,
real nice.
sweatshirts, hats, glasses. We got a great picture of Sebi this week. Remember, he got his helicopter ride on his 9th birthday?
Yes.
His dad sent him in his hoodie. He said it's been his winter coat this year, so that was kind of cool to see, too.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. Also, thank you to our Patreon pilots who are stepping up and supporting us every week. Sal is catching up to Charka there, 5-time tanker aircraft commander now. So God bless you, Sal. Thank you very much. Wow, we are deeply humbled.
Yeah, first of all, I don't know how that happens, and we're very humbled by that. And thank you. Rate us. Give us a 5-star rating if we don't deserve 5 stars. Tell us why, because we are trainable.
We are indeed, and we appreciate your praise, and that is a lot you can do for us if you can't afford to throw money at us. We understand, but we're grateful to those who do. Thanks to Brad Silcott over at bdsaviationphotography.com for helping us out and letting us use his imagery. I meant to put it up behind me tonight, and I forgot to do so. So apologies for that. But and then I always seem to forget. But is it coming?
I don't hear
I'm
it.
not hearing it.
I'm not
Are you
hearing it. I'm not hearing it.
Oh no. Well, the outro loop should be playing, and I could have screwed something up here. So let me see if check it real quick. No,
It should be.
According to this, it's playing.
It should be the sound of the two Air Force F-16 pilots that make the Air Force sound good. Our friends, the Dos Gringos. There they are.
There they are.
Awesome, awesome music, ladies and gentlemen. If you have never listened to it, 4 albums, not one bad song. You can't have a bad day listening to the Dos Gringos.
Not a one. Not a one. Well, that brings us to the end. So once again, everybody, until next week, thank you for all you do. Thanks for those who are active and veterans and the service members again and their families for your service. Until next week, stay safe. Check 6.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
It's... What? What'd he say?
He said it's over.
Did your parents have any children that lived?
Sir, yes, sir.
I bet they regret that.
I'll bet they regret that.
We're out. All right. Everybody, it's late over here in England, so I'm going to end the stream so we can get things uploaded and out of here. Take care. Good night. God bless.
Peace.
Peace out.